at the moment from my kitchen during coffee. Coffee's a little late today. The title, What's Wrong with Girl Scout Cookies? Let's start with the most obvious one. They're junk food. Anyone want to argue with that? They're junk food. Ingredients. Peanut butter. That's one of them. That's one of the flavors. Which has peanut oil and salt. Okay, dextrose for sweetener. So they've sweetened the peanut butter. And the next ingredient is sugar. Whatever cookie this is one of them. This is just the top hit. When I put in Girl Scout cookies ingredients on Google, this is the top hit. Now, the vegetable oil that they use is partially hydrogenated palm kernel, and or cottonseed oil. Now, that's trans fat. I think that's not trans fats anymore, but it is hydrogenated is the saturated fats we're supposed to avoid. Palm oil is the one that's killing the orangutans and destroying hardwood rainforest jungles in tropical places. So there's that. Enriched flour, well, it's flour, right? And that's the end of, if I have to click through. Sorry, I wasn't more prepared. So, yeah, it clicks through and it gives you the entire, 5 cookies of Savannah Smiles is 140 calories, that kind of thing. And then it tells you pretty much that you've got flour with a bunch of vitamins added to it, sugar, vegetable oil, that palm and soya and palm kernel stuff. Then we've got dextrose to make up less of the evil sugar, but actually just makes it even cheaper. The problem with sugar isn't necessarily the calories. It's the way that they have chemically reconfigured the molecules into something that doesn't resemble anything our bodies evolved to eat. And it's extremely similar to what they do when they take an opium poppy and process it into heroin, or a coca leaf and process it into cocaine. They amp it up 100-fold. There's no studies being done to figure out things like, is sugar addictive? Because there's no money to pay for those studies. And there's a lot of money to oppose them. So anybody who did set out to do those studies would rapidly find themselves running into unexpected problems everywhere from being unable to get a lab to rent to, assassinations. So there's a lot wrong with sugar, but it's going to take a while before everybody believes it. Now, that's nutritionally what's wrong with Girl Scout cookies. They're made out of garbage. You can go to any grocery store you like, and you can pick up any box of cookies off the shelf, and you're going to see the same ingredient list. So if you want to eat that stuff, it's there. It's there where you go and buy your food. Pardon me. There's no shortage of cheap junk food cookies available in your world that you need to have an 8-year-old girl at your door. Now let's get to the 8-year-old girls and 12-year-old girls. These because these are the brownies most often. It's rarely the older Girl Scouts who are selling these things. It's the young ones, the ones that are just developing their personalities and going through a great deal of anxiety and hitting puberty. And we're turning them into little door-to-door salesmen for cheap crap cookies. Let that sink in. Have you ever tried to do door-to-door sales? Was there ever a point in your life when you were so desperate for a job that you took a sales job and it wasn't your area of expertise? That part alone can be soul-crushing, but the competitive nature of sales turns up the heat far too high. Those girls are pressured continuously during the campaign. Those who do not do well enough are literally shamed into tears. Now, okay, they were in my group and I was in my group. Let's put it that way. If it happened to me, it's happening to other girls. And I don't believe for a minute that it's not common. I can accept that there are exceptions to that rule, that there are some extremely supportive groups and clubs. But you're still selling these stupid cookies. If this company cared so much about Girl Scouts, with whom they've partnered for decades, a century, I think, why don't they just donate the profitable money to the Girl Scouts and blazon it all over their cookie in the supermarket saying, we support Girl Scouts of America. And then if you want the Girl Scouts to sell cookies, or you want the Boy Scouts to sell cookies, or you want Scouts of America to sell edibles, food of any kind, why don't you have an annual national cookout where the kids have learned to cook one special dish and or join in a group, like, you know, some kids have learned how to barbecue, hot dogs, and some kids have learned how to bake cupcakes, and some kids are handling the sales at the door, and each child to his or her area of expertise, Boy and Girl Scouts together, doing a national cookout day. Everybody gets to enjoy the cute kids. The kids learn cooking skills. It's an excellent fundraiser. They can also, some children, they don't want to learn. They don't want to do the cooking. They're no good at it or whatever. It's just not working for them. It's not their thing. But maybe they're into performing. They have musical skills. Now you have entertainment. With a little bit of creativity, and we know how much kids have, they could put together a pretty awesome national cookout day that everybody joins in and is part of the community. They could just go down to the nearest parks, and I'm sure the cities would support it. Instead, what we have is little girls knocking on strangers' doors and approaching strangers in the street. Hi, do you want to buy my cookies? We're putting those kids at risk. We're not only doing emotional damage to them and giving them levels of this kid's better than that kid because this kid's dad is rich and took the cookies to work and everybody at work did it. But this kid's dad, he works in like he's a night watchman. There's nobody for him. Or a janitor. There's no one for him to ask to buy the cookies. And then over here, we got this one over here is like, dad runs a dealership and the kids learn to do sales at a really young age. And he's been running around charming people all over the place. And why are those kids now treated better than this one, whose dad does not have this kind of an employment opportunity, whose mom does not have this employment opportunity, who actually had to go out and bang on doors in maybe the less savory neighborhood? And why are we sending little girls out into public selling to strangers? We're so paranoid. We've got parents driving their kids 2 blocks to school. But then we dress them up in their cute little uniforms and send them out in public with boxes of cookies. It's a form of insanity. It's time we thought deeply about. Now, if you're having that deep thought and you're sitting there going, yeah, I'm not okay with that, what do I do? Well, if you're involved in the Scouts, you start talking with the organization about your concerns. Explain to them the problem you're having. If you're in business, perhaps you contact the cookie company and ask them why they're doing this. Why, if they're so concerned about Girl Scouts, they're not simply making an annual donation to enable them to develop their national cookout day. Or, you might have a better idea. Doesn't matter to me. I just want to get the kids off the street, and I want to get those cookies off the doorsteps. Cookies are there, but they're not necessarily something you should be shoving down people's throats with little girls, So that's kind of evil. The way the girls are treated is kind of evil. The risk they're put to is kind of evil. The only good part here is the person who's buying the cookies, even though they suck, because, they want to help the Girl Scouts. You'd be better off taking that money, giving it to the Girl Scouts. Just give it to the organization. Pretty sure they have a charitable tax number, so the more money you give them, the more you can take off your taxes. Win-win. You want to help them? Help them. Don't buy those stupid cheap cookies. They're hardly getting anything out of it. I have not done my research. I don't know how hard it would be to find out how much money the Girl Scout cookies campaign actually gives to Girl Scouts of Canada. It would be an interesting thing. Someone out there maybe is going to find out. Perhaps it's a very profitable campaign. I still think they could make that up in local cook sales. Bake sales, cookout, whatever. It might be something as simple as the girls bake the cookies and the boys bake the cookies, because I want the boys cooking too. I don't see any reason why the girls are the only ones who are learning how to cook. We all have to eat. And in this day and age, you can't just install someone in your kitchen the way my husband installed me and have food arrive on a regular basis. It's becoming extremely hard to come by. I mean, it's working for me. I like to cook, and he likes to not cook, and it's working. But we need to teach all our children how to cook. There are times when he's had to fend for himself, and he's living out of a can, and it's not as good. It's really, really not as good as home cooking. Okay. Done. Think about what I said about those Girl Scout cookies and sending little girls out to sell them. Please. End stream.